Hello, welcome, Felipe. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
here perfectly. Good evening, Robert. How are you doing?
Awesome, perfect. I'm doing excellent. I'm just can't wait to get this space started. How are you? Where are you from, by the way?
No, originally I'm from France, so from Marseille. But since
Okay.
6 years, I moved to Germany, and I'm living not far from Frankfurt. And yeah, let's see what will be the next step in my journey, if I can say it like that. And
Awesome. Yeah, you never know what the space brings.
exactly.
So
If I move for an industry in Germany, I know regarding blockchain, it's another feeling regarding Germany. So need to reevaluate the different possibility and situation today. But things are evolving so fast with the regulation. So
you just have to be flexible with these with all of this, basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not that hard for me to be honest. Can work remotely and all these things, but yeah, for my partners and things like that, it's a little more complex to convince her to move somewhere for some reason. But let's say the next bull run, things can be different.
I
Yeah,
mean,
Felipe.
we're all waiting for that bull run to come around.
Yeah,
It's been long
exactly.
due.
Yeah, start to get a long winter, but the light will be even tastier after that, I guess.
I mean, it's a good test for the true builders and filters out all the unnecessary cash grabs. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, especially when it's trailing for this long. So we just have to see.
That's I think that's the best moment for building, like you say. Because you can build on clear and a healthy foundation, if I can say, with a real community that believe in your project, and it's not just FUD and investing just to get a bonus on an NFT for an obscure reason. So no, I think it's a good period. It's necessary for all the ecosystem. That's how blockchain products have been built since the beginning, more or less, with the different cycles. And yeah, I think it's healthy that the let's say that the layer get out and that the real builder continue to do, and the one that are honest with their users. I mean, uh, can go forward and survive into the next bull run. No? We see it with FTX and all these things. It's not pleasant, but it's unfortunately necessary, I think.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
absolutely necessary, man. Seeing how all the liquidity flows into certain things, but uh, but no, it's great to see you guys. Still building and making progress. So excited to go over this AMA with you.
Yeah, well, that's why we're here. Huh? Thanks for invitation. Like you say, we are getting a lot of good progress the last 6 months. Really nice. Independent on the snow and the temperature, I would say we go against the wind. But yeah, we have a lot of good news to share with the community for the coming weeks. A lot of things will happen with Block, and I think that this MA could be a really good point to share our next steps and what we plan to do.
oh, that's awesome to hear. I mean, we've been keeping an eye on out on Block, and you guys definitely have been progressing hugely, and it's very nice to see that these market conditions didn't hold you back from making great progressions and strides, especially in the industry that you're also activating, trying to blend in real estate with blockchain. So kudos to you, that's for sure.
It's a challenge, but I think that's also the thing that motivate me to, or us. If I can say, like the entire team, to make it real, in fact, and make it possible. Because it's something that we'll discuss after the implementation, I guess. But what we are all aiming more or less is to more better diversification of our portfolio and real estate and shared investments, things like that. I think collaborative investments are definitely something that we are all looking for get more liquidity, more flexibility, and not just rely on USDC and USDT, for example, on the top of the bull run.
Yes, most definitely. Also, it will be interesting to see where all of the ecosystem will go once the bull run starts again. Since when the last cycle happened, we were such in an infant phase with not too much projects thriving within the ecosystem, and it was basically just like an exchange and a few other smaller projects with test nets going on. So this next run will definitely put a spotlight onto us, and we are more than ready for it to already start.
Yeah, yeah. After the MultiversX team, we built a lot of nice stuff with the Guardian and X-Portal, the car that is coming and everything. I mean, I'm almost praying that we get a little more time before the bull run, that they can implement everything and be ready for the wave.
Exactly. So since we have quite a few community members rolling in already, I'd say that we can start with our Twitter Spaces. And I would like to welcome everyone to our 16th edition of the Entity Project Dialogues. And in this episode, we're delving into the world of Blok, who is pushing the boundaries in the realm of real estate investments. And we are here today to explore their approach to fractionalizing and tokenizing real estate and also the core mechanisms of their platform. So, joining us today is Blok's Chief Technology Officer, Felipe Martin, and alongside with my colleague Todd Newman, who serves as the business developer at Entity. So,
Hello.
before diving into Blok specifically, we usually ask our guests for their kind of their perspective on what they think that which project in the MultiversX ecosystem deserves more attention. Like this, we can also hear maybe some really new information that we might not have explored from firsthand by since there are so many projects building on MultiversX currently, we might have slipped one that might be of huge interest. So we would like to hear, which one do you find interesting besides Blok, of course?
Sure. So first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation, and good evening to everyone that joined and to discover more about Blok and the ecosystem on MultiversX. To answer your question, I mean, a lot of for those that know me, I mean, I'm a pure technical person. I mean, so that's true that me, for example, when I joined blockchain and I joined MultiversX, it was especially because of the technical breakthrough that they were bringing with the secure proof of stake, the capacity to own your real token, to use Rust and the power of the VM. And I'm really inclined, in fact, to all the technological evolution and innovation that can be bring on the ecosystem, that it's on MultiversX or on another blockchain. But ideally, that's all the project that build try to add a little bricks to the foundation of the blockchain ecosystem, if I can say. That's what we are trying to do with Blok, and I will come back on that. But regarding what is currently building on MultiversX, I mean, there is multiple projects, I mean, that are building and that are also sharing the different tools and solutions that they are using for their products. I mean, I would say probably some wrong names, so I would not do it. Sorry, since a few weeks I'm a little disconnected by coding. But I see, for example, a lot of people providing the Unity module to integrate transaction with MultiversX. I think it's Cyberpunk City that provided that, or Red Cop. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, I think they were. Yeah.
Yeah. Also the one that provide all the code. Regarding the project, I mean, me, I'm a little. I have a little problem with all the NFTs project. I mean, to be entirely honest with everyone here. That means that for me, you need to provide a utility with the product and the NFT that you sell. I mean, what I see in the ecosystem and all the ecosystem, all the different blockchain, it's projects, in fact, that create an NFT, that have an idea, but that think after how to implement it and how to reach their target. I mean, and that's why I think Cantina Royale for me was a really good example on how to do it properly and to implement and to reach the project, to reach the community and to launch a product in time with the expectation of the community. I mean, Cantina Royale was probably the best product, I think, today on MultiversX. I mean, I played it and I still played, I think, a few weeks ago. and really a lot of fun. I even bring some friends that were totally foreign from the Web3 ecosystem. So, I mean, from my point of view, the project that brings the biggest value today on the ecosystem are not the one bringing a solution directly, but bringing also a solution plus the paving the way to other products to build also inside with them. And that's why I will aim for the project building with Unity that put back together, in fact, to provide a module for the entire community open source, and also Cantina Royale for the way that they are communicating and onboarding the community into their decision and in the development of the product.
Awesome. I mean, we're definitely in a maturing phase within the ecosystem. So at least from what I've seen, we don't have that many projects that are like with zero utility, as we've seen in the previous bull cycle, that they just create something and huge marketing and, of course, utility that has zero utility, basically, and it's just some words on the paper. And I don't see that happening anymore. Of course, there's the occasional, I mean, meme coins that we've seen recently is basically popping off because, I mean, there's always that audience who likes to gamble. So I don't think that's something that will entirely disappear, but it's definitely less prevalent as it was.
And I would say almost thanks to the bear market.
Yeah, exactly. So going forward, as we have navigated through the ecosystem a bit, I wanted to take a notice about the potential Blok has in disrupting the real estate market. And I personally believe its ability to simplify and also democratize real estate investments is quite underrated. But that is just my perspective. Do you share the same sentiment, or is there another aspect of Blok that you feel is not getting the attention it deserves?
I mean, with Blok, I mean, if I can introduce quickly the project because some of
Of course,
our listeners are maybe not familiar with it. So the idea
definitely.
of Blok, in fact, is to tokenize the real estate. So I think it's something simple that already people heard about with Real IT and other solution, with the difference that we are aiming for the European market. And also we want to provide additional services on top of the community investments to in fact provide more use cases for the different users. Okay, so quickly, so Blok we regroup different multidisciplinary people, if I can say. We have people specialized in real estate, people specialized in legal. We have technical people like me. We have also legal and marketing people. And this entire team, in fact, we try to create an environment to simplify the tokenization and the cut into pieces, if I can say, of different properties or goods, in fact, that can be invested by multiple people. So basically, how the platform is working, we have two kinds of tokens. We have the BKT token, that is our utility token, that is used by the user to stack on our pool to get advantages. I can come back later on that. You can use it to buy some to invest into properties with some advantages. You can receive some airdrops, some cashback. You can receive some free holidays and some stuff. And that's the token that we use, in fact, to invest and to raise money during our ICOs and our private sale. And on addition of that, for each of the property that will be listed on our website, you will have a block collection that will be an SFT on MultiversX, and that will represent, in fact, a bond that we emit, in fact, regarding the apartment. So someone will be able to invest for one bond at €50, and he will receive weekly benefits over this bond. Okay. We have all the legal aspects on the back. We can come back if people are interested, but I will not dive too deep into that right now. But the idea, in fact, with the montage that we have with bonds, we want to give the capacity, in fact, to use these different SFT tokens to reinvest, so either to do lending, borrowing directly, to reinvest directly on other property or to receive liquidity, or also to be able to use these different token as insurance for your own investments. Because, for example, like I say, we aim to be an investment platform. If I can answer your question regarding some functionalities that people don't think about, is the capacity, for example, if I want to buy a house, and I have half of the investment, but I don't want to go to a bank. I would like to be capable to go on Blok, to register my apartment, to try to receive the funding for the different community, and to pay my investors directly out of my pocket with minus half, for example, because I invested half of the rent that's come back to me, and I can buy back my block over the time to be the sole owner of my property. We want also to integrate a DAO system, in fact, to be capable for people, for the group of owners to vote, in fact, on what's happening with the property, like selling, changing the color, changing from a share apartment to an hotel or an Airbnb because of certain situation, because of the Olympic game whatsoever. And that's a different element that we want to create around. Also, I mean, we can maybe discuss about the roadmap later, but I will probably let you ask your next question. But yeah, I will say that regarding the functionality that we aim to foresee, in addition of what people are used to, is really the leverage of the DeFi and the liquidity of the different tokens that we will provide.
Thank you. That was very thorough. Appreciate that, Felipe. So my question, I'll tell the question, but I'll probably go in a little more detail. So where do you see Blok in 5 years from now? Okay. So I also kind of want to think about it in regards to, let's compare this to like a traditional real estate company, you know, like they get their foot in, they create a business, they start making some deals, and eventually they have to hire, let's say, real estate agents, you know. So the way, I guess it's two questions. You know, where do you see Blok 5 years from now, and how does that play a role really into like the type of personnel that you see hiring and how that can elevate you guys?
So I'm sure I got the end of your second question. Sorry.
Yeah. So are you guys also within these 5 years?
So
Will you be hiring? Will you guys be hiring like a lot of, let's call them like retail, not retail, real estate agents?
I mean,
and how does that work?
Okay, so within 5 years, the objective of Blok would be to own, to provide at least, or to be the interface with the investors, to be able to around maybe hundreds of property around Europe, even more. I mean, that would be depending on regulation, but we are aiming for Europe and then worldwide. Our idea, in fact, is to be capable to provide different level of investment. Like I say, that could be from B2B, from business to personnel, from personnel to personnel, and in fact to remove, and that's the concept, in fact, of blockchain, to remove the third party in the middle, and that Blok platform implement, in fact, all the legal framework to simplify the interaction between buyer and seller. But it could be for simplify the regulation, but also simplify the income of money flow and the outcome of the money also to simplify using, in fact, the blockchain technology to manage all these different elements, certificates, KYC, identity. But that's the interest of Blok. I mean, for the next 5 years, I mean, Blok will pay. As I see it, in fact, Blok will be a big part in the ecosystem of MultiversX regarding securities and the implementation of that kind of tokens. That means that there is a big demand on the institution for the kind of mechanism that Blok is currently implementing. But you can see it for investing into a property or in a lot of different systems. But Blok will be in 5 years, like I say. Sorry, I'm losing myself a little in the discussion.
No, it's okay.
But it's but in the next 5 years, that's the idea. We want to be a platform where people can buy and sell different set of properties, okay, in fractions, that can leverage these different tokens to get more liquidity, to reinvest, and to diversify their portfolio. And after that, also, that our different smart contract and system on the background are used by third party to provide similar services or same level of securities.
Oh, great. And I'll kind of just dabble in a little bit because it's really a personal question of mine. As Robert had mentioned before, you know, there's a lot of different projects that are in this space. So particularly, how does it work? How do you guys reach out to properties? And that's what I meant, like in 5 years from now. Is it traditional, like in traditional real estate, where you have people on the ground making calls, networking, and doing all this, or is it more of the users trying to bring them in? How does that work?
Okay, so that's a good question. So, and that's come back on what I said earlier regarding the multidisciplinary team. So that means that we have specialists in real estate that are capable, in fact, and that have the network to bring, in fact, offers on the table and get the best deal, in fact, over the maintenance, the renovation, and the different property and the timing also. Like because if we use that kind of platform, we need to have the flexibility regarding the time, what you cannot have when you're a personal person, because it's a rush when you want to buy. Either you sign or either you lose it, more or less. So by having this professional that have a lot of link with Century 21 and a lot of different companies that need to sell their properties, and regarding the situation with the increase of the rate at the bank and for the loan and all these things, you need to find alternative to diversify, in fact, the way to aggregate money. And doing a participative solution like Blok is definitely something in which they're interested, because that can increase the number of sales that they can do over the year. And that's totally their business. The thing is, like, they cannot on their own develop this solution and build it and secure it and do it, because it's not their business. I mean, if you want, compared to a lot of different companies, if I can say Real IT or other, we don't plan to buy the property and then sell it. It's either the community that invests it. If something is missing, we can buy the rest of the block and keep it on our own. But the idea is really to be an investment platform and not just selling properties. That means that we will directly be clear, saying what would be the rate. It will be a bond with a contract, so everything will be clear and legal. We'll have to pay this rate over the years, otherwise we'll have a trouble legally. And then we go forward on that. I mean, we really try, in fact, to have a different approach to be more an intermediary, to provide the third-party layer that is part of the blockchain, to put an interaction buyer and seller with different mechanisms between them to multiply interaction and benefits.
Okay, well, thank you. You kind of answered a little bit, but maybe you could just briefly just tell us on the next question, how do you guys differentiate yourselves from other blockchain-based real estate platforms?
I mean,
and one more, and what unique features or services does Blok offer that set it apart? Pretty much the same thing.
I mean, I think one of the main differences is, like, we don't aim on a particular kind of properties. That means that we think that the community should decide on what we want to invest or not, and should be the guide, in fact, or where the investment is doing. The job of Blok would be, like you say, to find the right property with the right opportunities, to be able to provide a yield that is proper and nice over the next years, and get the benefits over the sale when people want to sell it in the future. But we don't want to be, let's say, the central pylon in the middle that could be the point of failure for the entire ecosystem. For example, something that is different with us using bonds. In fact, for each property that will be listed, we will open a company that will own this property, and the bond will be emitted from this company. What are the advantages of that? Means that the risk, in fact, is inherent to only one property. And that's something that is really important for us, because if you buy a block, for example, in France, for an apartment that is in France, it's not the same risk that if you buy an apartment that is in the middle of a conflict area, if I can say. So you need to be able to modelize this risk. And that's where Blok arrive with this proper bond situation, in fact, to create a segmentation between the different properties, and to be sure as an investor that when I invest in this property, I invest in this property and not into Blok.
Awesome. That sounds good. So in short, what's happening is you guys find the property, it goes online, everybody takes a look at it, they kind of vote with the DAO. Of course, there's some due diligence and yeah. And then as far as your limitations or your liabilities, you guys are it doesn't affect everything, just that one particular property, I suppose. It's not interlinked.
Exactly.
Correct? Okay. I'll let Robert head to the next one. Thank you.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is, since we are talking about the properties and everything, it's one thing that we should all be considering is the region where these properties are, and it's kind of leading into my next question. Would have been, it's like, since there's so many there's a wide range of opportunities and places to invest. Can you go into a bit into detail on which countries or regions does Blok initially plan to make its real estate investments, and how are these selected? And maybe you can go into like some specific criteria that Blok uses when choosing a specific region or country for its initial investments. And maybe for, down the line, could you foresee a scenario where Block token holders could have a say in these investment location decisions?
Sure. I come back on the first question. So the main idea, in fact, into sorry, I think you asked too many questions at the same time. Can you please
Yeah,
repeat?
it's going in a bit in depth. So basically, the first part would have been to which initially which countries or regions
Yes.
does Block have its investments in?
So I can answer to that, and I will go after the next question directly. That's why I had my main part.
Sure, no
So
problem.
it's already decided, if I can say. So as you know, Blok is a French company, so the first property will be in France for sure, and is a company built in Orléans, founded in Orléans. So the first property will be in Orléans. The first property already been selected. That's why I can also describe to you the process that have been done to reach on this decision and where we are at the moment. But the idea, yeah, it's we plan to do in France at the moment to secure, in fact, the process, to be sure that the AMF is aligned with what we are doing, that they can look at it, that they have access to all the information. For the moment, everything is green. Everything is green, and when the proof of concept will be launched, that the property will be buy and the first rent will be paid, we arrive of the proof of concept will be approved, and then the IMF should be fine with that. And then when we have that, we can start to move outside of Europe, because outside of France and continue into Europe, as the regulation from France have been, and it seems that's what happened today. I have to dive into details about the result of the vote, but since that it's what happened, it will be extended to the rest of Europe. So right now we are focusing on France, and quickly after that, when the regulation will be propagated to the rest of Europe, we'll be capable to address the rest of the European market.
Okay, I see. And are there any specific criteria that you guys use when choosing a specific country within Europe?
Alors, specific country at the moment, I will say in Europe, we don't have problematics, because if the regulation is the same, we should not have trouble. So there shouldn't be a difference for us, except on the management of the property. That's why probably the first set will be definitively in France, just to be sure that we are capable to manage them with a service that is dedicated for them and that everything is working, before to extend and have a dedicated service for another region. And that's where, for example, we can include the BKT holder to vote, for example, for where the next investment should be. Could be in Germany, could be in Italy, could be in Romania, depending on where the people are voting. To see, it's we plan on putting the DAO, like I say, as we want to be the middleman platform. We would like to involve the community owning BKT into certain vote to decide, in fact, where we are aiming and where to go. After, where Blok, in fact, will be taking the decision, it's on the estimation of the rentability of the property. For example, when the property that we will propose next week, probably, stay tuned. The idea, we take the price of the property, we take the price of the renovation, we add the taxes and all the fees that arrive on top, that arrive on the price of the apartment. So that's what need to be raised to buy the property. So you know more, you know how much costs the property itself, including all the renovation, all the thing. Then you look at what you produce. So either it's an apartment for a family, either it's a shared apartment for students, either it's a Airbnb for holidays or an office, and you have a renting price and estimation over the year that provide you the rentability. And after that, you need to remove some fees that's already included on all the details of the tokenomics, that go on the Blok platform and on the property itself to pay the charges, the renovation, the taxes, and the development of the platform. But the job of Blok, in fact, is really to identify these opportunities that are capable to provide a yield that is stable and good enough for the community, and also be capable to sell years after with the benefits.
And the last part of the question would have been, do you foresee a scenario where block holders could have a say in these locations that
Yes.
might invest in?
Like I say, we plan to do a DAO after. As you know, it's always complex and tricky to organize a DAO. I mean, it's always easy to say, but it's harder to implement. But it's definitely something that we are aiming for. That's why also we are the private is still open and we are still looking for investors. I can discuss that later. But the idea is to provide of the early investors the capacity also to invest in advance on the property, to be sure to buy blocks, to be able to buy them on BKT also, with an advantage prices and no fees, and participate on the DIO. In fact, for example, if we have 3 new apartments proposed by different companies, maybe you can put up a vote and we can propose saying, look, this one will be an office with 5% a year. This one will be a share apartment with 5.5% a year. This one will be and everyone will have a set of risks, a set of benefits, a set of more on renovation, but less on rent, for example. And then people can decide. But for sure, Blok will have the last word at the end, or at least he will have the proposition at first. Either the proposition at first or either the decision at the end, but we cannot afford to have a property that bring minus.
Awesome, that's good to know. And this is what I'm was saying before, is like the regional diversity and also the possibility of token holders' influence kind of make Blok really stand out. And speaking of token holders, one of the intriguing aspects you guys mentioned in your white paper is the opportunity for them to enjoy rental income and capital gains. I see this as a great incentive for potential investors. And could you maybe dive into how this income is distributed and managed and also audited?
Okay, so there's still some interrogation mark around this area, but I can at least clarify about the different direction on which we are going.
Please do.
So the idea regarding the investment, I'm lost again. I mean, I had a really long week.
There's no rush. There's no rush. We have time enough. And also, just a quick mention to the community, if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. We will go through them at the end of this Twitter space. So back to you, Philip.
Yeah. So the idea, in fact, to become what you say, in fact, to redistribute some gain and benefits over the thing, it's a mechanism that we want to put in place to incentive and to force, in fact, the owner of BKT to take good decision regarding the property that want to be listed on the application. The meaning is like to for example, so that's why there's a lot of integration mark. Depending on the property, we can make a flexible or a fixed rate, in fact. So, for example, when you have a rent, saying 2,000 euros per month, in fact, you will consider not 12 months of rent, but 10 and a half. Because you always consider that your apartment is not full all the time, and there's always a risk that it's vacant. Okay, so that's why you have a fix. That in fact, independently of the apartment is taken or not, you get your rent. Or you can have a variable that is more adapted, in fact, for that kind of situation. That means if it's an apartment that is never taken, you don't get any money. But if it's taken more than what was planned at the beginning, you take more. Okay. In fact, if we play with that and with the percentage that Blok is taking, we can create a pool, in fact, of resources that can be decided with the BKT holder what to do with it. So, for example, we can decide to give it to a property, for example, that got some problem, like a water leak or an accident, inundation, a fire, I don't know. For example, to compensate, let's say, the owner of this block in case of problem. Or if there is no problem, just distribute it to all the BKT owner or to burn it. And in fact, we want to create a pool, in fact, where the benefits, in fact, that are done by the different properties, so de facto by the choices done by the community, can be used, in fact, by this said community to do some activities and some more investment, or to make a gift to an association or things like that, or invest in another project.
Perfect. I have another question for you.
Shoot.
Always have questions. So here's one. You kind of touched it a little bit. Basically, I've been a landlord myself, and I've foreseen this. So, how do you guys intend to simplify the real estate investment process by handling tasks such as tenant procurement and rent collection? And how do you plan to deal with potential conflicts such as tenant disputes or non-payments?
That's something that is really important, like you say. But to respond simply to you, we will take insurances. But we
Okay.
cannot afford that kind of situation. That's why directly in the calculation of the rentability, and also depending if it's a family, if it's a share apartment, if it's an office, the risks are not the same and need to be calculated. That's where we bring our experience, if I can say. And but yeah, we definitely need to take insurances. It's included in all the contracts, and take in consideration the risk of accident and the risk of non-payment of the rent.
Yeah, that's actually really smart. That blew my mind right there. I didn't know that. That's really cool. Okay.
It's
Well,
a,
how
it's
does
a little
Blok?
expensive, but you need to do it if you want to have a business that run over it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I only have one house, so if I had several, I think that would probably, or two houses, one for rent. So yeah, it would make sense though. I never even thought about that as an option.
And more you have apartment and property, the cheaper it gets.
I bet. I bet. Yeah, it makes sense. Well, how does Block plan to address the potential liquidity issues that arise from fractional properties into NFTs? How can the investors quickly convert their NFTs into more liquid assets if they needed to do that?
Okay, so let's be clear and honest, it will not be available tomorrow. But the idea, when you get your block, there is multiple way that you can interact to the blockchain with, to the protocol. So the first one, simple, is you can claim your rent, okay? So secondly, you can, and again, that's foresee for the end of the year, that's something that we plan to do. You need to have a marketplace, so where you can decide a price and you can sell and buy a share of some properties. For example, you can, let's say in a few years, this project in 5 years, when you have apartment all over Europe, and you have the Olympic Games that will be selected the years after, you can start, the day after, you can start to produce yourself and say this apartment will bring me more because it's a flexible rent in the city where the Olympic Games will be held, for example. Yeah, not sure if I
Yeah,
answer your question.
yeah, it does. So it's in time. Yeah, there will be, and I'm sure, of course, there'll be more projects plugging in, like as an ecosystem where they'll be more than happy to take that NFT off your hands. So
Exactly. I
in
mean, we are already discussing with partners that would be interested because it's a security token. So you cannot put it on a SEX. So you're forced to provide a marketplace or a lending platform. And currently, I mean, you're aware probably more than me that there is a lot of platforms currently throwing that kind of services around the way, and be capable to level some piece of real estate is definitely something that makes sense for them. I mean, it's people need to understand it can be considered as a stable coin. If you put 50 euros, the 50 euros are based, in fact, on the value of the property that is reevaluated every year, plus the benefit that is promised on top with the bond. In fact,
Yep.
so after that, in fact, you can that's a good name, but there is nothing. But for example, if you take ZotPay or you take Crypto.com or things like that, for them it's really perfect because it's something that have a clear value that is fixed. They cannot put it
Yep.
on the listing, but they can use it to provide liquidity and to use it as a collateral.
Awesome. I've always thought of property in that way too, to hedge your investments. Some people do stables, gold, property, so in my mind, I've always thought of it this way. So that's great. Thank you.
It makes sense. I mean, if you want to create really use cases, you need to go in that direction.
I'm curious to see actually what kind of novel platform protocols or dApps will emerge from this, since after all it's an asset on chain, so you can move it, you can use it in different ways rather than traditional, I mean in more than traditional ways that we're already used to. So even though we might not think of something that is existent now, I'm sure somebody will come up with a crazy novel idea that might even help with liquidity issues. So you never know. Also,
Exactly. I mean, just imagine you have a stable coin that bring you 5% per year for nothing.
yeah, I mean, uh, from what I've seen, I can't recall exactly. I think Coinbase has the flat coins, which is uh, hedges against inflation by having the same amount of inflation as the real world inflation, if that makes sense. So I haven't dove deep into that, but it's on my to research list, and it's quite a novel use case for stable coins, and it's definitely looking very promising. And it's a different spin to what we already know in the blockchain space for stable coins. So
I
flat
mean,
coin.
exactly. And if you think even further, I mean, in the future, I mean, having a US dollar, it's nice. I mean, today we are really happy to have the stable coins, but in the future, maybe you want to trade something that is not backed by a fiat currency, but directly by something that is physical.
Yeah, exactly. So going forward, because we are slowly running out of time, and I want to go through all the questions that we have prepared. Another interesting challenge that tokenization brings is the fragmentation of property ownership. How will Block handle decision-making processes for property improvements or sales? Uh, will the DAO have the voting rights, or will the block holders have, or will they have these decisions at their fingertips? How will you ensure that the interest of all token holders are fairly represented?
No, but okay. I mean, that's something that we are aiming to. I mean, like I say with the DAO, okay. After
Mhm.
it's you always need to take in consideration that it's for me DAO. It's not something that you arrive one day and don't evolve. It's something that will go by granularity, if I can say, giving more and more freedom to the community depending on how the community is behaving or what the outcome of the result and the different decisions that are put in their hands. But ideally, in fact, like I say, as we are identifying the properties, we are making an estimation on all the costs and all these things. In terms of renovation, we don't. Okay, I'll make you an example. Okay, let's say we project in 2 years. Okay, we have a huge community. People invest all the time that we put a property on the website, and let's imagine that we find a nice property. We have multiple choice. So either we put on the website three properties different, like I say, one office, one share apartment, one family apartment. Okay, or we can put the same property with three different organization or three different renovation, if I can say. One will be an open space, one will be just small room, one will be we transform it in a haircutter salon, I don't know. But we can do that maybe at the beginning, but we need to identify all the risk and all the costs and benefits that go on top of that. For me, what you are describing right now, it's something that will happen maybe 5 years after the sale of the property, because the initial sale Blok probably will make the decision or propose decision like I just described to you. Otherwise, for renovation, like changing the paper on the wall or things like that, it will be something that arrives 5 years after the buying of the property. When you renovate it, so probably on the table we'll say either we renovate it, we keep it and we continue, or either we sell it and you can get back your liquidity.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that answer. And just going one step further, because as we know, even the real estate market is not the most stable at times. I mean, of course, it is way better than the blockchain or crypto space that we are activating in. But however, there's always the risk for properties of depreciating in value and or maybe becoming even unprofitable. And as an investor, I would be keen to understand how Block intends to handle such situations. Will these risks be communicated to the investors, or how does that work more exactly?
I mean, I'm not sure exactly on which one you're planning, but to be honest, from my point of view, we will try to be as transparent as possible, taking in consideration that if there is risk, we are also part of this risk, because independent of whatever happen, we are still forced to pay percentage of the bond. So that's something on us. We need to take care of that. But for handling this risk, I mean, like I say, we have professionals working at the company, and we have a lot of partners, and we try to identify the risk and to avoid them as a maximum. I mean, again, diversification is key. Today, what Blok we try to provide, in fact, it's a way to be able to invest in real estate without having to put $500,000 on the table. Because today, it's what real estate is. If you are a young couple today, you want to invest, you need to put $500,000 on the table if you want to have an apartment or a small house in the middle of nowhere. And that's a problem today. Because that means that you take a loan for 30 years only taking the risk on only one property. What you can do with Blok is to own 30% of your main property and to own 10% of different properties around the world to diversify your risk. And that's what Blok bring value.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Since we are really running out of time, I would like to ask the community that if you guys have any questions, to leave them in the comment section of this Twitter space, and we will go through them in a short bit. So, Todd, if you have one or two more questions left, feel free to shoot them.
Excellent. All right. I have one question left, and you've already answered it. But there might be one little aspect of it that I think I could probably go into. And it's basically, when properties get damaged or there's a major disaster or something that happens to the property, you had talked about insurance. So the insurance costs, obviously, I'm assuming those are integrated into the tokenomics. So if that goes up, then so tell me about how does that work? So if your insurance cost goes up, how is that shared with the holders?
I mean, that will be the job of Blok, in fact, to readapt, for example, the rents, because we cannot touch as a percentage. I mean, so like I say, the percentage of yield on the bond is legally we are forced to follow it. So whatever happen, you will receive your 5, 6, 7% over your token, whatever happened to the apartment.
Okay. And I'm going to add a little extra one, and I know you probably know this one really well. So let's say I wanted to get into Blok. Let's say I wanted to rent this property. I assume, and I apologize because I shouldn't be assuming, I should know this, but I assume they're paying in like fiat, or are you guys integrating like U-Trust somehow so they could pay with crypto? And how does that work? And if they use Blok, that'd be great too, because that would hold the value of the token, and maybe they get a discount or something. Like how's all this work? Like if you're wanting to rent this property, go through the process. Like, well, how am I paying with it? What am I?
Okay. Okay, I'm sure I get all your stuff, so just let me know if I answer your question. But basically, I mean, for also one of your aspects, Blok, we are trying also to be cross chain. So in the future, we would like to be present on multiple blockchain to be able to provide liquidity and things on multiple blockchain. But we want also the capacity. I'm sorry, I'm a little lost also.
No, it's okay. How does a tenant pay? Like, what are they using for payment? Fiat, Blok.
Yeah. For the payment, that's the thing. At the moment, it will be euro. Okay, so also as a owner of Blok, you can also decide to be paid in euro on your bank account directly. So it will be maybe every month or instead of every weeks. But it's something that we want to put in place because we want to bridge, in fact, to be able to bridge Web 2 and Web 3. So that means on our first property, right now, it will be also possible to invest with SEPA transfer. And in the future, also for the ICO, we are implementing also payment with Visa, with the creation of an account and all these things for this person to access all these different elements. We want, in fact, to simplify the investment in real estate and the capacity to people that are foreign to the Web3 to enjoy the capacity to invest starting at 50 euro. So we want that people capable to arrive, do their KYC without a wallet, and we own their token, and we don't need to have any kind of regulation because it's a security token, so we can own it for the customer.
Okay, perfect. That answers it.
And regarding the rent, I mean, ideally we would like to, ideally by euro it would be the main thingy. But for example, if one of our tenants is a user of the platform or know what we are doing and asks to pay, for example, in BKT or something like that, we can put in place a system for sure. I mean, it's maybe not rentable for one person, but it's something that we want to democratize or something that is voted by the DAO, by the community. It's something that we will do definitely. I think it's interesting as a solution.
Yeah, I would love to see it in the future, like when things really mature and stabilize, to be able to have the aspect to pay with your own in currency. Because, like I said, that. But then again, there it's a can of worms, in the beginning. But again, it would be something interesting to see.
It's what I described earlier. Also, for example, if I want to buy a house, I can arrive with half of the liquidity to buy the property, and instead of going to a bank, I can just raise the money. And then what's happening? I can pay directly on the platform. And let's see how we can organize that. But directly on the platform, I could pay my investor directly through crypto. But something, and then I don't have to go through fiat at all. But we need to go step by step regarding the regulation and see how things are going. But it's a solution. Like I say, our objective is to create more use cases and to be able to leverage real estate properties to get liquidity and capacity to diversify your portfolio. So that's where we are aiming for sure.
It would be also interesting to see, a possibility in my head if tenants could choose to pay rent, for example, in BKT, and maybe they have extra utilities or maybe even a discount at their rent, just because they're using an on-chain asset and they're using your product as well. So
Totally.
it's an incentive for them.
Yeah, even put some burn mechanism in place. I mean, it's definitely some. I mean, like I said, and that's where DAO start to get interesting because you can put decision and base priority depending on what your community expect from your product. I mean, for sure, you need to arrive with a proof of concept, something that works, a marketplace to give the freedom to your tokens, the liquidity, and your user. And after, when you give the freedom, then they ask for more solution because they say this is missing, and that there we will probably go further in that kind of solution.
Oh,
because you have to
definitely.
imagine it's hard. I mean, between France, other countries, I mean, we need to be sure that everything is aligned. And even if we separate all the entities separately, and that's also nice from a legal point of view, if there's a problem, we need to to take care of that. That's our job.
Yeah, definitely. But it's a good brain exercise to see what are the possibilities out there. So I have been monitoring the comment section a bit, and we have two questions lined up. And after that, I guess if there are no more, we can slowly end this Twitter space. So the first question comes from Tech Crypto Learn, and he asks, how are you going to deal with different government regulations and guidelines?
Yeah, so like I said maybe earlier, I will maybe repeat or give more details. Currently, we are following the French regulation. So it's, I would say it's one of the hardest and more restrictive one currently. And it will probably be the one that will be globally applied to Europe during this year. So our objective right now regarding regulation is to apply to the French one. And while they will be applied to the European one to follow the different regulations and the different limitations that need to be taken. As we will not be owning a token from a customer, we should have a problem on the short term, but probably regarding what's currently happening, we will have to register or at least declare ourselves properly to the new entity in Europe to be capable to do to provide our services broadly around Europe. But it's something our legal department is totally on it. It's their job at the moment, and there's a lot of things happening. But yeah, I mean, like I say, we focus on France first because that's what we know, and we create a cluster of properties. And after, we'll probably be guided by the community to aim on our next country.
Awesome. And his second question would be, are you planning to give ownership of properties, I presume, as NFTs?
Alors, it's unfortunately not possible.
Interesting.
That means that legally, so we can fake it. I mean, that's something that are doing most of the company. You can fake it if you want, but legally, a token cannot be a property paper from anything in Europe. So that's why we are using the bond, in fact, to create this interface. In fact, that the bond is a representation of the debt that we have regarding the investors, and this token, the token on the blockchain, more or less, is used to track the ownership and to simplify the payment using the Web3. But the token itself cannot represent the property. The property can be only registered on one entity. That's legal. I mean, everyone should. If you invested in some real estate, you cannot put 200 name on the paper. That's not possible. Or you put a company, and that's what we are doing. You put a company, and then you have investors. So either we can do equity. So that's something that we thought about. So to distribute equity instead of bonds. The problem with equity is you don't have the same regulation, and you can only pay benefits once in a year. So if you want to receive your rent every week, you cannot do a share of the company. Because if it's dividend, it's only once a year.
Awesome. Thank you. I mean, it's interesting that it's not possible. I mean, it was kind of like the first idea when NFTs started popping into the market, and the concepts were thrown around left and right. Property ownership was kind of one of it. So it's interesting that these developments end up like kind of the opposite. I mean, it's the reality of the market. Even the craziest ideas don't really make it, and even though it sounds nice, we just have to adapt to it.
Exactly. My objective, what I'm focusing on, is to have all the capacity to have, in fact, the representation of the property on the token itself. I mean, that's why we are aiming to develop securities and technical solution that enforce the KYC, that limits the exchange, for example, with a contract signature in the middle, all these different elements to, in fact, ensure the securities implementation of the protocol. When you have that, after things that are simpler, and you can start to bring more value on the token. But for that, we need to wait for the regulation. I mean, we have all the technical aspect that is in place. And when the regulation switch and that the token can be the representation legal of the stuff, we just have to switch it more or less. It's or to take the reference instead of taking the database, to take really what's on the token.
I see.
But we don't want to lie and say that, yeah, it's part of the property, because that's not true. It's a bond from the company that own only this property. And that's the best that we can do. Dividends will be only paid once in a year, and I don't think that people want to receive once in a year. They want to compound their benefits, and that's why we have been through the bond.
Yeah, as we've noticed, investors in Web3 are not as patient as traditional.
I mean, if you have to wait end of the year to receive your benefits, something is wrong, and it smells like a bank. So it will have not been an acceptable solution. So right now, I think it's the best compromise in legally covered with the bond and the contract that is signed between Blok and the investors, and the capacity to benefits of your token through the DeFi protocol to leverage different mechanisms.
Awesome. So yeah, that was about it from the community, from what I've seen. And before we end, I would like to remind everyone of the upcoming Entity Builders Forum on June 10th, where we will bring together the brightest minds and the biggest projects in the MultiversX ecosystem in an online event. And we encourage you to mark the dates on your calendars and join us in exploring the future of Web3, DeFi, and GameFi. So, as we conclude tonight's insightful discussion, I would like to take a moment to thank you, Philippe, for joining us and giving your insightful answers into the world of Blok and how it will tackle the real estate market on Web3.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everyone, for coming here. So just if I can add one thing regarding where we are also. So next week, probably, we will release our new DApp for the investment on the first property. So the information has been released to our private investors already, and the property will be available next week, so people can start to invest starting at €50 in USDC or in e-gold. Taking consideration that 3 of the investors will receive a golden ticket and $3,000 each of BKT, and some airdrop also of BKT at the end for all the investors that will invest on the first property. I mean, we invite you to follow Blok group on Blok project, sorry, on Twitter to follow that if you want. And we'll also do the KYC if you want to start to do your KYC to participate. It's already open on the Twitter. You can find the link for it. And we will probably close soon the private sale for the private people and just keep it for the VC and the company when the POC is released. So if you want to participate, just contact us, and if you want to be part of the private investors. Otherwise, thank you everyone for your time, your question, and your curiosity, and don't hesitate to reach out if you want anything.
Awesome. Thank you once again. And as Felipe said, make sure you guys check out their project. It's very ambitious, and it's definitely something that you don't really see every other day. So, and they're doing a lot of, they've been building very quick and very impressively. So we have been keeping an eye on them, and they are definitely one of the builders to keep an eye out. So I would like to thank you everyone for tuning in, and I would like to say that next week we have a new project coming on to the series, and as I said, make sure you sign up for the Entity Builders Forum on June 10th, as it will be one of the events of the summer. So you make sure you don't miss that one. So thank you once again, guys, and see you guys next week. Take care.
Super. Bye. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Good night too.